Chuggalos, welcome and thank you for tuning in to episode 263 of the Brew Crew podcast. I'm going to be your solo host, Matt, for this episode. JT is once again off gallivanting the globe and saving the earth from would-be wrongdoers. So this is going to be a little bit of a different episode, as it always is when I'm hosting solo, but I'm excited as I'm going to do 3 different beers, but I'm going to do a comparison on 2 different beers. So I've already poured beer. So the first one I'm going to have is Panda, which is a Tripping Animals brew, and I've already uncorked these. That's right, all 3 of these beers were corked beers, and it's like, well, I didn't want to do it on camera. Usually if it's myself and JT, one of us can dance while the other one. So this one had like a wax seal on it, and I didn't want to deal with it. But this is Tripping Animals, and it's Panda. See, a couple minutes in, you'll be able to see that. And this is a Imperial Double Pastry Stout coming in at 14%. I was super excited for this one because it's a Tripping Animals one, which we, on episode 262, we just talked about how Tripping Animals, the coffee sour from one of the first couple of days of last year's or 2022's advent calendar. So I'm trying to let it warm up a little bit, 14% as a stout. Again, we got into this conversation. We were doing like a beer and bottle share this last weekend dinner. And it was incredible how many people were like, this got to warm up. Where'd you get this from? And people were negotiating. They're like, this one's got to sit out a little bit. And it's interesting. A lot more people all over. Doesn't have to be if they're Chuggalos or whatever. Were like, this beer has to warm up. So I'm excited. A little bit about this. Wow. It's like liquid peanut butter. This is a barrel-aged Imperial, aged in rye barrels. Rye is a offshoot or a type of whiskey made with rye instead of the typical corn and barley mash. And sitting with that peanut butter is advertised marshmallow, Ugandan cacao nibs, and Madagascar vanilla. So this is doing a global trip. Maybe JT's out preventing people from taking the ingredients for this beer. I don't know if I get the Ugandan cacao nibs rather than like Democratic Republic of Congo or Zambia, but the velvety texture. It's been a while since I've had a velvety beer. It's like somebody emulsified peanut butter in this beer. Anyways, I'll let that warm up a little bit. We'll get into stuff off the top rope, so to speak, because again, 3 different beers. One's going to be a stout, 2 different lambics that are the most recent one is a 2016, and the oldest one is a 2013, and again, just cracked. Man, this is delightful. So anyways, when we were trying to work out the beats for this episode and JT informed me that he wasn't going to be able to make it, I was like, how am I going to be able to still keep the train moving? And again, I understand it's January 2024. I'm looking for podcasts to also listen to. I appreciate with even all the explosions of, where's the explosion on this one? Oh, goodness gracious. The explosion of beer podcasts that you guys choose to consistently listen to us. Last week's ratings, I think last week's episode, were in the 80s. Just after a week. So again, thank you so much for listening and sharing the good news. And again, we're only getting started. Wow, once that warms up a little bit, that's going to be delightful. And again, so anyways, more of the description. Insane chocolate on the nose, palate, silken vanilla. I get that hint of gooey peanut butter and vanilla sweetness. It's 100% peanut butter. I gotta go get more of this because this is absolutely dynamite. 14%, it's not there. Just besides the stout, and you can kind of see how it, I always say pollutes the glass, but you kind of want that where like that tar, that light's a little bit bright. Oh, it resonates. Anyways, how are you guys all doing today? Gosh, this is going to be quite the episode. All right, so there's a couple of things. There was untapped articles I was saving to chit chat about. We're just going to get them on right here. So I was going through Untapped. Sends me like articles, especially at year end, looking at awards and everything. So I wanted to go to what the most 5-star check-ins were from the last year. So the brewery with the most 5-star check-ins. So that just means not the building itself, rather the beers they produce. And I was kind of astounded by this stat. So I'll just give you guys a second while I bring it up, and we're gonna go with it right now. Treehouse Brewing, 39,000, more than the next two for sure combined. And you might be able to squeeze in 26 plus 18. That'd be a little high, but almost as much as the next three. So Treehouse, as we know, out of Massachusetts. Russian River, obviously, we've had them before. JT has a few of those out of California. Other half, which we're finally starting to get into this area, and we've had before, Side Project and The Alchemist. So interesting. And then, it's awesome. Presented by Stone, even though they're not on there. So anyways, we'll skip all the way down to the bottom. I thought it was at the bottom, maybe not. Awesome. So anyways, let's then foray into, while I ruminate on this beer, the top 10 most check-ins by country outside of the United States. I would have never guessed England. I would have never guessed that England, the check-ins outside of the United States, 14% of them come from England, 12% from the Netherlands. I would have put the Netherlands or Germany first, but they're right there. You have the Benelux, so the Low Countries with Netherlands and Belgium, both coming in at 12 and 11%. Canada with 7%. We've had a lot of Canadian beers. I just had a Flying Monkey this last week in Invictus that was a Russian Imperial that was absolutely fantastic. And then Germany with 10%. Wow, you just look at that, and again, craft brew, you think is inherently like a American thing, being that they just dominate the marketplace. And granted, it's hard to get other things. But I feel like with the beers that have all the adjuncts and everything that you're really looking forward to in a beer, that's America's got the market cornered on that. I'm going to have to go back to this. This for sure is the best peanut butter beer I've ever had. Without relying on that vanilla, it's just a nice, I'm going to go for a reattack. A nice balance to the peanut butter, and it just gives it that texture and that inherent sweetness, because peanut butter by itself is not sweet. It's all the sugars and all the gunk that, if you get like a natural peanut butter or like a peanut butter powder, it's hardly ever sweet, because that's all like the oils and the sucralose and everything that they put in afterwards. So this is money. This beer is, man, I'm at a loss for and it's still warming up. I might have to go play on the other beers here just for a second. Where this, it almost is like your mind is putting a jelly or a sweetness to it, because peanut butter and jelly are, the top 5 most popular food combinations in the world. It's just everyone is, raised on that for the most part. I don't know if I met somebody that's like, I've never had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You've had people that have never had pineapple on pizza or something like that. Like when you think of like marriages in food, or like a bologna and cheese sandwich or something like that, bologna being the very specific cut of meat. But a lot of people have had peanut butter and jelly. That sweetness, because it almost tastes like there's a fruit that's intermixed in it, but it doesn't say anything of the fruit. That marshmallow, though, is what gives it that staying power on the palate. And again, we've talked about this all of 2023 and going into 2024. The presence and the ever-growing popularity to utilize marshmallow instead of lactose in a beer, because from my naivety and my weak understanding position, I think that both of those ingredients are meant to do the same thing. It just, a brewmaster somewhere, or a conclave of brewmasters were like, let's try marshmallow instead of lactose and see where that gets us. This is dangerous at 14%. But again, you have something like this and you're like, oh, you peanut butter beer. It's one of the most popular gimmicks or adjuncts in a beer, especially in the stout and porter world. So the fact that they nailed it on this one. Off the top rope, I'm going to give this a 5. There's no way to improve upon it. It's 14%, so you can't just be like, man, I wonder what they could do with this if they amped up the ABV. You can't do anything else with it. It's not bitter. Some people complain about like a coffee build. I know Chuggalo Mikey has the criticism, not a complaint, because that he doesn't want coffee, and this has no coffee to it. Like, this is a warming aspect, maybe because of the ABV, but it inherently relies on that peanut butter and vanilla blend and that marshmallow to give it lasting power on your palate. Wow. I didn't have a 5 on the podcast. If you listen to episode 262, again, thank you. I didn't have a 5. Taco Party. I had Taco Party and one other beer. I think I had 2. I put my notes in the church room. This is going to be my first one. It was the Toppling Goliath Cherry Fandango. There you go. That's there's a little bit on the... Excellent. All right. Before I go any further, I want to do an out-shout to our friends at Warped Wing. Warped Wing in downtown Dayton just celebrated their 10-year anniversary on the 18th, so just 4 days ago, and they had a couple of blowouts. Some friends went down there. I was in no condition to be able to go down this weekend, but it was awesome. It was awesome to see 10 years, and a little bit of trivia. They weren't the original recraft brewer, if you will, or craft brewer to the revitalization of downtown. Toxic Brewing Company, who we've talked about before on the podcast, they just celebrated their 10-year 6 months prior. So they celebrated in 2023 their 10-year, and Warped Wing was right behind them just, again, 4 days ago, January 18th, as we're recording this. 2014 was when they opened their doors. Same building on Winnedot, and now they have, 4 different locations. So success begets multiple locations. So, again, congratulations and a tip of the bandana to our friends at Warped Wing. Oh, all right. So beers 2 and 3. So again, I cracked them already because corks, and I knew I was going to be doing. So these are both going to be Belgian. We've got a Kriek Boon. This is a 2016. This is a traditional lambic ale fermented with real cherries. And then I've never heard this before. So it's a Scarenbecca Kriek, bottled in 2013, and this is cherries aged in oak barrels. So I'm going to do simultaneous pours and hopefully keep the conversation going. So again, I normally drink right out of the bottle. You guys Chuggalos know that, but the reason is I don't know if I could handle all of these fluids. All right, so here we go. So the first one is the Kriek. Both of them are Kriek, sorry. The Kriek Boon. So, again, 2016, 4%. So I shouldn't feel too guilty. Again, a pronounced bottle, pronounced punt. And, again, Belgium. I'm very fond of Kriek Boon. It was one of my first craft beers when I was deployed to Germany many, many moons ago at the beginning of my military career. And at the Belgian Officers Club, they would allow enlisted to come. I was enlisted then. And I had Mort Subite, which is a Kriek beer, and it was before I'm 40 now, and I was not 21, but you could drink legally on base in Germany under the age of 20. And I was like, I have to buy all of this. So they came out with a case, and it was a very European-style bottle. It was very thick glass. So I was worried about it, traveling through customs and everything and making sure it wasn't going to break. And again, not being 21. So I ran out of socks. I put every bottle in a sock. I don't even know how heavy my bag was. And I get to customs and, do you have anything to declare? Yes, I have all this beer. Sir, you're not 21. And Tech Sergeant Jimmy Jansen, rest in peace, came up and he goes, I'm his dad, and I'm authorizing this. And they looked at him, looked at me, and so they say that was that story. I deployed with Jimmy in 2007, 3 weeks after I graduated from college, to Turkey. And Jimmy and I regaled in that story. And Chuggalo Dave, who's a listener, was on that trip in 2007. And I'll never forget Jimmy. Again, rest in peace, Jimmy. Grandpa Jansen, as we called him. He was a little bit older at the time. And I'll never forget that solid that he did for me. Otherwise, they would have taken all of my beer going through customs. 4%, a little bit thinner. It still has that cherry body. It just tastes like a diluted. And I'm going to go for a second taster on it, just to make sure. Again, these are just taster glasses. A little bit thinner. So now I'm going to go with the Scarenbecca Kriek 2013. So 6%, 4% for the first one, 6% for the second one. A little more opaque here. And again, it's been rolled and everything, uncorked or whatever. It's been sitting here for 10 minutes while I was doing like a tech check. Wow, that is like a rolling vinegar. Wow, that is condensed. Don't be fooled by my face. In a delight, if you don't like sour, the Kriek is much more accommodating. It has that sweetness, even though it's thinner. This is pungent. Wow. And I don't feel bad. I don't think I'm drinking this late, because I go to the most recent check-ins I have untapped up right now. For the 2013, 3 January, 6 October, 6 October, 6 October, 25 August. So there's been a smattering of check-ins. And all of them have been somewhat positive. People drinking out of far more prepared vehicles than I have, just little taster glasses. All right. So both these beers have their positives, and both beers have their negatives. While we're distilling that, I've got another article on Untapped I want to check out with us. It's the top 10 breweries with the most created beers. This is different kinds of beer. Treehouse, most 5-star check-ins. So it's not like they're a one-trick pony, because you can argue that brewers on the previous list are one-trick ponies or only have one or two really good or sought-after beers. Treehouse, 174 different beers. So that's more than 14 a month. 14 separate beers. So that's a new beer, 174, math in public. That's a new beer almost every other day that they're creating. So a lot of these, I'm going to guess, are specific to the tap house and aren't packaged. So Stone, much bigger production facility, again, California, 138. Again, these are shocking numbers. I would guess 100. It's the fact that they're almost double. Chroma with 131, not familiar with them. Polly's Brew Company, not familiar with them. Let's go learn about Chroma. Polly's Brew is Wales. Interesting. So Welsh with 100 plus. And again, their average beer are bigger. Look at that. Triple IPA. Wow. And big stout. Chroma, Brazil. Wow, Brazil. Bourbon barrel aged and flip flops. Barley wine, I'm in for that. Not a lot of check-ins. So it's interesting. I mean, they might be gilding the lily a little bit, Stone, look at that. So you go to Chroma, if you're looking at this, where, about 20 minutes at 19 minutes in. So Chroma, one of their beers, 13. The other one, 27 check-ins. Stone, 500,000 total check-ins for Stone Delicious IPA, which is one of their flagships. And Cocoveza, as other people pronounced it right, 263. Coco or Chuggalos was in the Advent calendar. I think it was day 12, 13, right around there. Delightful little beer. And Treehouse. Look at that. King Julius. And inspirations and other beers off of King Julius. That's one of their hallmarks. Again, a much smaller number. Not as big of a brewer or a distributor as Stone. But the fact is, 174 different beers. And again, all time, this Charlton-based brewery, 1,122 beers. Incredible. Like, just the ability to still drive and to make a desirable product, but you dilute the market with how much you're dilute in a positive way, just because of how prodigious you are in your ability to change up your recipes, make a quality product that, again, consistently the most 5-star reviews, and to have that many different unique experiences is something to be heralded. That's why they're my number one sought after beer. They have been. I still haven't had a Treehouse beer yet. I'm knocking stuff off the hit list in the last 6-7 years, primarily thanks to Chuggalo Mikey for picking me up stuff. I know that Bottle of Utopias is waiting for me once I get up there. Again, wow, 6%, 4%. So like in the same family, and it could be the age on it or whatever, the amount of vinegar, sourness, and punchier taste buds is incredible compared to this, which is the Boon. Is, again, going back and forth, and I'm glad that's why I'm doing a side-by-side comparison. It's night and day. This would be like a Miller Lite, and this would be it's hard to do it with Pilsners, but just again, it'd be like a hoppy IPA. That's the chasm between these two different beers. And boy is it interesting. So then we'll go to their Untapped average. So total for the Scarenbecca, total in the 10 years, because I'm looking up the 2013 specifically, it's only 226 of them. The Kriek Boon 2016, there's 2,682, so 10 times the amount of check-ins in 3 years less time. Okay, so the Scarenbecca, the 6% cherried Kriek aged in oak barrels, off the top rope. This is a one-off. That bottle would be an aggressive. It came in an 11.2, or sorry, 12.7, very Euro bottle. That would be a one-off that you should share with friends, and hopefully you have something else to drink. And that's not a bad thing. Sometimes one of something or as a shareable is plenty. The punt of the Kriek Boon. Man, I would say I could drink this all day, because it's not strong. When you're having it by itself, you're like, oh, this is super satisfying. You pair it with something else. Man, you would need like a cheese here for like a palate cleanser, or just the yeah, really, you get like watered down cherry juice, and then this, you just get that pungent palate performer. Pungent palate performer, that might be the... Neither one of these, even though different style, different experience, are going to compare to that Tripping Animals. Give myself a little bit more of a taste of that. It's nice going back and forth on this one, being able to talk ad nauseum. Oh yeah, now that that's warming up, you get like just a little more roast on the peanut, potentially, but just subtle, and it just might be the warmth of, or the temperature of the liquid as it's played around with on the palate. Today's episode is definitely brought to you by the letter P. Boy, this has been. I came into this no notes. I didn't even write anything down, so you knew that it was going to be an adventure. I had a couple of articles. I knew the direction I wanted to take it. Go to some year end and some high producers when it comes to Untapped. But I knew I wanted to do a side by side on the lambics, especially as I was bequeathed those and ripped through some of those this last weekend at a bourbon and beer bottle share. I will say this, and it bears repeating all the time, and especially as people listen to this. We'll never yuck people's yum. We'll make jokes or make light about something, but there's so many different styles of beer, and Untapped is heralded for adjusting to those different types of beer as people make varieties of varieties. And they keep putting in like different like alt beers and stuff that we haven't even scraped the top of on the podcast, because we do like 20 to 25 different styles. I could go through the spreadsheet and see really how many styles that we've done. Some of them are harder to get as they continue to grow. You can look at the Great American Beer Festival and think of all the different categories of beers that they hand out, or all the different styles. And just a lot of them aren't produced or aren't produced in a production method, so they're able to distribute them with ease. Some of them, like Treehouse, a lot of them are point of sale and knowing what sells. So it really is incumbent on the brewmaster to make a product that they know are going to sell and turn a profit, so they're able to keep the lights on. And I just appreciate the innovation and taking chances. As there's been a couple of breweries in the last year that we know we've had on the podcast or whatever that have closed, and it's unfortunate because the market is there, even though the market is pivoting. Craft beer is down, and a lot of that, as we predicted a couple of years ago, was getting eaten up by seltzers. And while seltzers are good and refreshing and their own animal, there's a lot of space there, and it just takes vanguards and people willing to take the risks, and then it's our responsibility as the craft beer aficionados or whatever to reciprocate that risk by providing them with our money, income or whatever, and it's a cycle. But with that, comes a lot of reward and a lot of renown, hopefully, when you make a quality and a good product. And Tripping Animals did that, last year with that coffee sour, and did it with probably the best peanut butter beer I've ever had with Peter Panda. But that's it. Just a random assortment of thoughts there. A little bit shorter on this one, but that's fine. I think I jam-packed it with a few thoughts. I already forgot what I was going to prodigious. I knew it was in there. Palate. But that's it. Episode 263. Again, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, next week we're back to normal operate. We're going to have to figure out who's bringing what, but I know it's going to be a good one. Until then, hopefully your beer's cold. And make sure you uncork it off a camera. Otherwise, we're going to have another Belgian cuvée situation. But until then, cheers.